Like we got
It's
30 minutes.
time for another episode of the Cultural Hall, and it's fun when news is a little bit late. Perhaps I get kind of impatient, and so here I am with my friend down in Texas. It's Russell the Love Muscle.
Hello, Richard.
Live from his kid's basement, from the kid's bedroom, from the top bunk.
I mean, she would have still been in primary, but they changed the age, so it's technically a young woman's room.
Oh, get out. She's that old?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
They grow up so fast, Richard.
Yeah, well, sure. 7 years till she's out, baby.
I know, that's it.
Yep, count it down.
But they may never leave.
No. 2 of the 5 will never leave. And they'll cycle through.
Okay, that makes statistical sense. I can live with that.
Yeah, 40%, right? And the youngest is never leaving, right? So he'll always be one of the two. The other one will cycle through. No, I get it. It's fine. People know.
He's cute. Hope he stays cute.
Yeah. No, he'll be a hellion when he's a teenager.
The youngest we won't care at that point, though. After having burned through 4 others, let's be like, are you breathing? Cool. Yep. Did you go to jail? Fine.
Right. It's like my mom would say, don't get brought home by the police and don't get anyone pregnant. And other than that, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't remember much in the way of restrictions that were placed on me as a young man.
Wow, but different.
Being the youngest.
Different scenario in your household.
What do you mean?
Well,
I was the youngest of 3.
Well, but after the tragedy, like she just was lucky that you were around.
Oh, well, yeah, but there
was a gratitude. People don't know, but a horrible tragedy in the now I feel callous that I introduced it this way. Russ's dad died by a train
in the early 80s. Yes. Yeah.
And not laughing matter. I'm sorry.
No.
Tell Bonnie I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make that joke.
No, it's fine. It's the problem is that I have made many jokes about it, so you felt comfortable doing it.
Yeah, and then other people will hear it and be like, "Man, what a terrible." That doesn't pretty at all.
That's a interpersonal joke, not one that translates well to the podcast. I don't believe.
Yeah. Sorry to everyone who has had a parent that has passed. The thing is, and
by train.
Yeah, by train or just in general. Like I think about the passing of my father, the inevitable passing of my father or my mother, and it's crippling. Absolutely crippling, even with the knowledge of like, hey, I'll get to see you again. For some reason, it doesn't bring the peace that I feel like it should.
Yeah.
How are you?
Well, on that note, it's hot. It's hot in Texas. There's
what's the deal?
Heat waves and heat warnings and humidity and
it's because of the index, right? But you guys have still been like over 100 or something is what I've been reading.
Yeah, the feels like temperature has been pretty high. It has been over 100 degrees though, which does not help when there's a little bit of moisture in the air. We don't pray for moisture here.
No,
because it's already in the air. But we pay for rain.
When do you get the because I feel like if we pray for something that isn't the heat of the summer, then it's the tornadoes and the tropical storms of the fall.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be fine. It's weird. Like I feel like Texas doesn't have weather that's normal, and by normal I mean like it's unpredictable. Like I cannot sit here and say like, well, it's going to be this in October because who knows. I feel like when people move here, I'm always like, they're like, how bad is the summer? And I look at them and say, I don't know. I've been here for summers where there was 122 days straight where it was over 100 degrees and I wanted to die. And I've had summers here where it never got over 100. So whatever.
Roll the dice.
Good luck. And that's in that's in 15 years of time. Usually it's hot. It's always hot. Even the year that didn't go over 100. 98 isn't cool.
No.
But it wasn't over 100. So it just depends.
Okay.
It'll rain sometime and it won't sometimes. And we may or may not get tropical somethings. But yeah. What do you do?
Well, before we get into the news, and by the way, in the third block, our friend Kurt Frankum from over at the Leading Saints, he's going to come in and we're talking all about the new I wanted to call it the Missionary Guide. That's not what it is. It's the Preach My Gospel, the changes that are in Preach My Gospel. He and I spend a good 25 30 minutes talking about some of those changes and other tangents as what happens.
Was he a Preach My Gospel missionary?
I think as he was leaving, it was coming on.
Okay.
So maybe like at the very tail end could have been. Okay. I got this review for the Cultural Hall. You can review this show in Apple Podcasts or in Spotify. Allows you to leave some sort of review. This was a 5-star. The review says, I love when I see a new episode has been released. I love that Richie and crew are informed and present great content in an honest, thoughtful, understanding, and compassionate way. And that's Dr. JDB 87. So thank you, doctor. A medical doctor? Maybe. I'm betting just an educated doctor.
I mean, medical doctors are also educated.
Well, but I'm saying not like a doctor. I'm saying like a doctorate. A doctor like Dr. Biden, not like, Hawkeye Pierce. That's what.
And wouldn't it have been DBHD PhD?
Too many letters. Too many letters. So thank you for the review. Take a second and review the show if you haven't, for crying out loud. That's it. That's all I've got. Should we take a break and come back and do actual articles of news? I've got nothing. It's hot here, but hot here is above 85, and I just hate it.
I mean, everything I've heard about is it's been cooler than usual in Utah. But
yeah, well, until about 2 weeks ago, and then it just now I don't even want to go outside.
Do you go to the water park? That's what I do.
No, what I don't have kids.
And
so
that would make
going to the water park is a little different. Why is there a guy here with no kids? Okay. Why does that guy have no friends and is at the water park? What is that guy doing here by himself? That's my.
I wish he wouldn't wear a Speedo.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break. We'll come back and do actual articles of news. Here in the second block of articles of news, we do actual articles of news. Hit it, Peter. And away we go. Tons of news. We haven't done news for a while, but I think there are some pretty interesting things that are going on. The church, that is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is having an exhibition that showcases 45 of Minerva Teichert's paintings, and it's now open at the Church History Museum of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in downtown Salt Lake. The exhibit is called With This Covenant in My Heart, The Art and Faith of Minerva Teichert. Now, here's what's sort of interesting about this. Some of the paintings that are exhibited in said exhibition are the ones that were in the Cokeville LDS chapel that the church said, yoink, and took them away from the chapel, and that there's a lawsuit over from the Teichert family to the church saying, oh, no, those paintings were to stay in the Cokeville chapel or become back property of the Teichert family. They were never, a donation to the church as a body. And the church said, nah, they were in our building. A couple of years ago, they decided that they would mandate the 20 pieces of art that could be hung in an LDS church building. And they said, yoink. And now they're being exhibited as part of this exhibition at the Church History Museum. So
that's kind of gutsy to have works of art with disputed ownership that there is currently legal wranglings over, and then be like, yeah, we're going to do an exhibition too.
Well, here's the thing that I'm wondering, and because I'm always looking for why would this be, why do they do, is one, either it was planned in advance and they just sort of executed on something and people didn't think about it, right? Like someone higher ups 2 years ago said, we're doing a Minerva Teichert exhibition and make it so. Or
and somebody was like, hey, there's some in Colville.
Yeah. Cokesville. Come on.
Cokesville.
Colville's in Utah. Cokesville is in Wyoming. But then the other thing and this is where my mind goes, is if the church exhibits it as property on their property, does it more cement their case that this is their property? Like if there's some sort of legal sort of loophole or, snag that because they can say, listen, we did this and had this exhibit here and this shows that it's our property, and is there something that it validates or verifies more so that it's church's property that, helps their costs in the
You have the
lawsuit.
wrong wild for that question.
I know, should be your wife.
I'm going to go out and say, I'd imagine whenever they donated it, there was documentation about the terms of the donation, and that would govern it all.
Sure. But I think that's what the lawsuit is over, because I think that it said it's the property of the Teichert family or of the ward there in Cokeville. So who knows? It is open, though, if people want to go check it out. The museum and museum store are open Monday, Friday, Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Admission is free, so it's not like the church is trying to make money in particular off of Minerva Teichert's work, but I thought that was kind of an interesting thing.
Go now. Your next chance to see them might require a trip to Wyoming.
Yeah. If that lawsuit, I'm fascinated to see where that ends up going. I think that this was sort of an interesting story as well. There is, let me get to the start of this whole thing, a new set of lyrics for As Sisters in Zion. Now, we're probably not as familiar with this because we don't sing, you and I, typically too much, the As Sisters in Zion. But there are 3, I think, new verses to As Sisters in Zion. And the thing is, when it's telling a friend of mine, in fact, my friend Cherie Call, LDS musician, she said, is it written by Janice Cap Perry, like the original lyrics were? And I said, I don't know. And then she looked into it and said, yes, it absolutely is. And now for your listening pleasure, Russ Wild and everyone else, 3 verses, the new verses of As Sisters in Zion, as sung by Cherie Call. So I thought that was kind of significant. It's fun that we were able to get her to do that. And I always panic, and I'm going to pre-apologize in case I get it wrong. I swear it's Cherie, but you know how there's sometimes when you look at the Cherie and you go, is it Sherry? Cherie?
I always get confused because there was a girl in my high school named Cherie Call. And so I always think that it's her, but it's not.
Cherie.
Obviously it's not.
Yeah. So cool though. It's fun to see that the lyrics are geared more towards like women serving missions and being able to have God's Spirit to be able to dictate their life, and kind of going hand in hand with Helaman's army. And I just think it's cool. And
I think it'll be.
Oh, go ahead.
I think it'll be interesting to see if we see more of this going into the new hymn book.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, are we going to see things rewritten, and what are they going to be? It's going to be like Taylor Swift drama, only in our chapels.
Exactly like Taylor Swift drama. And then
what are the new changes?
Yeah, the Tabernacle Choir in years to come will do an Eras tour where they sing the different sets from the various hymn books. Exactly. All with costume changes.
Oh, I can't wait. They're all going to look remarkably similar, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just different colors. Just different, bold
shades of pastel.
Yeah. Yep. Now, you brought an interesting story to the attention of the Cultural Hall the other day, and I was hoping that you would share it here.
Yeah, I spend my time looking at international news for fun, and the Sydney Morning Herald had a story that the headline is "Mormons Walk Away from Major Multinational Tax Evasion Scheme," and a headline like that makes me go, "We did what?"
Yeah,
and it's an interesting story that talks about apparently the church had set up a tax structure, a charity in Australia in 2012 that allowed members there to donate to that. Now, the way it makes it seem, the story makes it seem, is that rather than like their tithing going to the normal way you donate tithing, it went through this charity, which then allowed members of the church to claim their donations as a tax deduction. Now,
because in Australia, unlike any other English-speaking country, as I understand it, the donations that you make to a church are not tax deductible.
Right. They are for gifts only.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, this allowed members of the church, and I don't know how it was structured. And if somebody who's listening has been to Australia, lived in Australia, is in Australia, served a mission in Australia, and knows how this works, I'd be fascinated to know if you still just filled out your slip the same way and it just went that way, or if they told you to fill it out different. I'm kind of fascinated about
it. Yeah, or like you paid to the particular organization through some other portal, and then you essentially represented your donations as tithing back to the church with the bishop. Sure.
Well, the Sydney Morning Herald did a story in 2022 that talked about this for the first time. And the year previously, in 2021, there were $90 million in donations to this charity, making it one of the largest charities in Australia. And they figured that the church members, through their donations, were able to claim tax deductions of almost $500 million by doing it this way. But since their story in 2022, the donations to this charity have dropped to near $30 million. So I don't know if there's a method to why some people would still be donating there or how it's working, but it's fascinating that so much money went there and they had this scheme, which is, I mean, I imagine some people would say that's just smart business.
Yeah, it's a loophole that they found to be able to do it. And what do you want them to have to pay taxes too on the charitable donation?
Right. And so, I mean, I just think I think it's an interesting, I feel like the business of the church and the church, the religiosity of the church are a fascinating dichotomy sometimes, but the donations to that organization have dropped off. They also talk about how, some of their stories have shown that the church overestimates the charitable work they do with their donations, but they didn't really get into that as much as the tax implications and the period that they had this special charity set up to accept donations. They called it the Sydney-based LDS Charities Australia. Had no paid staff, just volunteers.
Yeah. And I think that part of the rule too was that money had to be particularly spent in Australia, and likely wasn't being spent in Australia.
And I would think, to me that a member of the church, then think, oh, that would be a great deal if it made it so essentially 100% of my tithing donations were tax deductible, and if it also meant that money stayed in our country or in your community.
Sure.
I think a lot of people would be into a system like that, where you knew that, hey, my tithing money is going to stay in my country, especially as the church grows throughout the world. I think lots of countries would be eager for similar things, but it's funny accounting in the business side of the church.
I mean, the thing for me, I think the irritable thing for me is, if the church said, hey, there's nothing wrong with this, what we were doing was perfectly legal, I have an issue that they then stop doing it. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things like that for me, where it's like, listen, if it's not illegal and you feel fine about it, then you should continue to be doing it. But if it's a thing that is sketchy, is a little under the table, is maybe not as, honest as it could and should be, and now you're going to stop doing it because people have brought attention to it, that to me feels not what the gospel teaches me about being honest in my business, in my dealings with my fellow man.
And I feel like the answer to that is, how was it done? Mm-hmm. Was it done by hey, instead of paying tithing to the ward, fill out your checks this way, and this is what it will make possible for you? If it was presented hey, if you want to claim your tithing as a tax donation, you have to donate this way. Mm-hmm. If it was explained that way, and people were like, but church donations aren't taxed. Okay, cool. And I think that how it was explained and how it was handled, I think would be interesting.
Sure.
I mean, if it was $90 million a year worth of rogue members saying like, oh, I myself am going to apply what would have been my tithing donation to this charity and do it that way. And even though that's not donating your money to a separate charity isn't, and then calling it tithing wouldn't necessarily be approved by the church. But if you just did that on your own, which I can't imagine $90 million worth of donations were done on their own.
Sure.
But I can see scenarios where members of the church in any part of the world would say like, I know better what to do with my money than the Lord does. I'm going to make charitable donations with that 10% on my own, and I'm going to claim to be a full tithe payer. I can see that I imagine there are people that do
that. And the other side of this, and I don't know that I want to dwell much more on this, but I think the other hard thing about this is, what if it is exactly what I'm saying that it is? The church is like, hey, we're going to be a little shifty, a little shady in this thing, do this. And then when they were busted, they said, okay, don't do this anymore. What then? Like, let's say of all the ill intent is accurate. Then what? Is that, then does it question truth claims of the church? Is it bad actors in, positions of power, and those people need to have their membership, called to question? Like, it's interesting to think, okay, well, maybe like you say, it's just some rogue members. Maybe it was some instruction and people thought that it was fine, and it turns out that it wasn't, and then they changed their behavior. Sure. All of those things possible, but what also if it was?
I mean, I can't see the scenario where this charity with volunteers was set up like because they thought it was. They set it up absolutely to like make it so donations would be tax deductible.
Sure.
Like, I don't think they thought it was wrong, and I think they would perhaps argue still that it isn't wrong. But now that attention's been brought to it, they're like, well, this isn't a good look, and so. The story does say that they weren't able to necessarily confirm that any sort of investigation was happening by the taxing authorities in Australia.
They're not able to say that because it's an instance of tax investigation,
right? And so if there were something that was going and something were to come out, I think that would be interesting too. But I don't. When it was obviously set up, it was approved and set up. They set the charity up in the legal way. It wasn't.
Sure.
I mean, it's a letter of the law, principle of the law, spirit of the law kind of thing. And I find that's the intersection of church and business that I find interesting. That how gray can you be?
How gray can you be? You talk about how you like to peruse the international news. And I thought this was interesting. This from the Daily Mail, the most credible international news source. But what I do appreciate about it is that the Daily Mail recognizes that when you put the word Mormon in a headline, it's going to get a lot of clicks by a certain populace of people. This article says, this is abuse. Mormon mom of 6 is slammed for threatening to throw all of her kids' belongings in the trash, including their homework, if they failed to buy them back from her with cash or by doing chores. It's her name is Ruby Franca. She's facing.
Does that excuse work? My mom threw my homework away because I wouldn't buy it back.
Well, no, this woman, 2.2 million subscribers on YouTube. This happened. She stopped just this last January, so 6 months ago at the recording of this. She gathered all of her kids' possessions and said, listen, if you want these things back, you're going to have to earn them back because I told you to clean them up. I don't know if your mom ever did something similar to this. I'm going to throw everything out. It's mine unless you earn it back. I've heard of these stories all the time.
I threatened to throw my kids' stuff away on the daily. So
yeah.
I'd never thought to try to sell it to them. But go on.
Sell it back to them. You have to earn this thing back. There's a website called Cancel Utah Vloggers, which I'm already a fan of. It's also a TikTok account as well, where they find folks like this and go, I can't believe that they would do that. I mean, to me, it just seems like, listen, don't leave your crap out. And this woman was sick of it. And someone said, I lived in a house like this and it's abuse and it's a power trip. focusing on the wrong things. And then you see pictures, of course, of the whole Frank or Frankie or Franca family and what they've done. And yeah, I don't abuse. It's abuse, says the Daily Mail.
But did the kids get their homework back?
Well, I mean, we don't know because she stopped doing it. She said, I'm done. Ruby later defended her actions to Insider, which I'm assuming is some sort of press entity, explaining that Chad had been sharing a room with Russell. Those are their kids, then 10, and that therapists and psychological professionals recommended they be separated after a series of incidents between them. She said she told Chad he could sleep on a pull-out guest bed, an inflatable air mattress, or the bean bag since they're not going to get along. She's abusive, and it's a power trip. Just don't. The kid should just not be a jerk. I mean, put your stuff
away. Yeah, if only it was that simple. If the kids just put their stuff away.
I mean, it is that simple.
I mean, the thing that I say over and over is like, the fight's playing the Nintendo, and I say, video games are supposed to be fun. If it's not fun, we're not going to be playing it. And if you can't figure out how to have fun together, we're not going to do it. But now I know that I should just say, I'm taking that, and you're going to have to earn it back.
Yeah.
Wait, that's abuse.
Rats. No. Rats abuse.
So I gotta ask the Daily Mail what I can do to get my kids to listen.
You take parenting advice from the Daily Mail. There's an interesting article just worth mentioning. This from the Madison Record. I'm assuming that that's Madison, Wisconsin.
Would you call this an honorable mention?
Yes. It's talking about how most people are familiar with Missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints being young people, but this is one of those small town feature reports where it's like, but did you know it can also be older people? That's it. That's the thrust of that hot news story. Listen,
is there a delightful picture of the senior couple that lives in a trailer in that community?
Of course there is.
Nice.
Helping
out in the branch.
Other things worth mentioning. Cloudflare, that's got to be some sort of tech company, I'm sure. The Cloudflare CEO says exclusionary culture hurts Utah's tech status, but admits Mormon missionaries grow up to be great salespeople. You're selling the toughest thing in the world, says Cloudflare CEO Matthew Prince. So hard for people to feel accepted when they come here to be a part of the tech, the Silicon Slopes, as they call it, because we're so exclusionary. But we make great salespeople because we sell religion. We're tough. We learn it young. Because
the gospel is the hardest thing in the world to sell.
I mean, I did a lot of tracking. I never thought of it as selling anything. Right. I didn't even very rarely think of it as convincing.
Right. But I mean, I often approached it with the idea that I would never buy a car from someone who knocked on my door.
Sure.
Offering to sell me a car. And I definitely wouldn't change religions if somebody knocked on my door. At least that.
Yeah. So I guess that's the reason why I think it is, in fact, the hardest thing. Hi, right. I'm here on your doorstep. You don't know anything about me right now. I have some beliefs that most of your friends will say that those are a little silly, or perhaps they'll label you as being a part of a cult or, something like this.
And all the things you do for fun, you're going to have to stop.
Yeah. Would you like to listen to this message and then subsequently change your life? I guess that is the hardest sales thing. I think I always thought of it like, this is the thing that is so important that I just have to tell you.
Right.
Not even like, hey, you have to accept it, or, hey, believe this, or any of that kind of stuff. It's just like, I need to tell you this thing. Do with it as you will, I think is how I approached so much of the time when I served.
There's a great new flavor of ice cream. Have you tried it?
Yeah. Yeah. Have you thought about this?
Do you want to tell the CEO of Cloudflare that it's the Holy Ghost who's the good salesman?
Ooh, I like that.
He's the greatest salesman ever.
There is, you bring this up, and since we're sort of at time, I like to keep our episodes at about an hour, and I know I visit with Kurt for about a half an hour as we talk about the Preach My Gospel. We didn't get through very much news, but there is a new kind of Dreyer's ice cream that is definitely worth checking out. So give me a second. I'm going to get you, maybe it's Dreyer's. I always get confused.
I can see that.
It seems like there shouldn't be, yes, here it is. And I'm going to ask you what yours is here in a second. Something that is life-changing to you.
Okay.
Something, it doesn't have to be a gospel-related thing, but I like asking people their life changer. This is something that has absolutely changed my life in the last couple of months. Dreyer's, probably get it most anywhere in the United States, but I don't know that. It's from their Rocky Road collection. They have an ice cream called Cookie Cobblestone. And what is in Cookie Cobblestone, you ask?
Go on.
It is a chocolate-based ice cream.
That's point number one.
It's their a twist on s'mores, but what they do is it's chocolate ice cream with marshmallow swirls, cookie dough, and
what kind of cookie dough? Just chocolate chip cookie dough?
Yeah, chocolate chip cookie dough, and Oreo cookies.
They have a similar cookie here that doesn't have marshmallows that they call Texas cookie two-step, I think.
And so what? It's Oreo cookies and the chocolate chip cookie dough?
Yeah, but no marshmallows. I don't know if it's Bluebell that did it or if it's the HEB store brand. The thing that I've noticed with both Bluebell and the HEB is I feel like there's been a diversity of cookie doughs lately. Like Bluebell just came out with a Cookie Monster ice cream that has peanut butter chocolate chip cookie dough in it. And I've had sugar cookie dough in cookies.
Snickerdoodle?
Yeah, no, that's at Christmas. That's the Christmas cookie and cream ice cream.
Okay.
But that's all. I mean, it's interesting the different flavors of cookie dough. That's why I asked about the cookie dough.
We've digressed. What's your life changer? What's your thing that changed your life recently? Doesn't have to be an ice cream.
Well, no, I'm going to keep it in the ice cream family just because it was something that was like when I knew it was coming, the buildup was so great. And then I felt like the first serving of it delivered on my expectations. But then as I ate more of it, it's all right. But it was Dr. Pepper float ice cream. So like Dr. Pepper ice cream swirled with vanilla, and they kind of create an ice cream float flavor.
Okay.
Which was delightful. But the more I ate it, the more I was like, I'd just rather drink my Dr. Pepper.
Well, or just make your own float with some great vanilla ice cream and a Dr. Pepper.
And I did, in fact, make a Dr. Pepper float. And I didn't feel like it was added anything to it other than just having a regular Dr. Pepper float.
I was hoping that you were going to say, and it sank.
No, it didn't. It floated. So.
Oh, that'll do. That was good. I'll take that.